there's lots been happening lately. And I know you've been getting a lot of questions about the election night. I got a lot of questions about the election night. One of my buddies texted me. He's like, "Oh man, the housing market's going to get upturned because of what's going on." I'm like, "Really?" So let me ask you the question: how is the election going to impact the housing market?
Let's say it together because in preparation for the segment we did. So let's on the count of three, let's say what the impact of the election is going to be on the housing market. Ready? One, two, three.
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. It was funny. I got asked leading up to it, what's going to happen? What's going to happen in the housing market? And it's like, I understand the stock market might plummet 600 points or go the other way, which it did. But the housing market's going to wake up in the morning and do what it was going to do anyway. I mean, this is such a gradual thing. People have such a hard time, particularly in media, understanding that the pace of the housing market is glacial, and the things that drive the housing market are like population trends and migration, the kind of things that don't happen overnight. And you can panic all you want at 2 o'clock in the morning if you own stocks. You can sell them all before the sun comes up. But in housing, you can't do any of those things. So it has a way of sort of tamping down on the volatility. So that's the first point, is that nothing moves quickly, and so that's a good thing. When you talk, if you're using this thing to try to make a quick score, then maybe this is not as exciting to you. But if you're using it as a way, it being investing in housing, if you're using that as a vehicle to like achieve long-term financial independence, et cetera, well then you love the fact that it seems to fend off, gusts of wind that would otherwise blow the stock market one direction or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think for those investors that are looking at day trading, they're going to constantly freak out. But like you said, the housing market, you don't day trade like that. It just doesn't happen. Period.
Doesn't happen quickly, yeah.
Yeah, like not even if you're buying and selling real estate notes or mortgage notes and first and second trust deeds. Like, it still doesn't happen. It takes 6 months. So, I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I need to cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, let's be honest. The housing market, it doesn't react the way that the stock market does. So everybody just needs to stop freaking out about it and just keep buying real estate that makes sense. And just keep in mind that you make your money when you buy.
Yeah, and accumulation, the thing. So the question, in addition to the election impacting housing, it was, well, if it goes one way, what could happen? If it goes the other way, what could happen? So that's a reasonable question. And I think the outcome was actually just about right, because what's important, I feel like, is that right now that you don't have to love or hate or admit one way or the other who's in the White House right now. Okay. Actually, love and hate, it should be neither. Okay. Like or dislike is actually as heated up as anybody should ever get on these things. But there's no question that it's a pro-business government, right? There's no question. Now, you might think it's pro-business and all the fat cats are getting the spoils. Fine, separate question. It is definitely pro-business. Lots of deregulation. You could argue it's a bad idea. Whatever. I'm not arguing anything. I'm just saying what is. What is that companies are getting massive tax cuts, and businesses are getting deregulated, and it's getting better for businesses. And that does have an impact. Anybody who wants to deny that it has an impact on hiring is, ignoring what's right before their eyes and total common sense. Mm-hmm. So anyway, long story short is that when you go heavy pro-business, what you get is a robust job market. What you get is improved confidence because of that. Mm-hmm. Companies are growing. Companies have lots of free cash to invest because of the tax cut. All those things wind up helping to create an optimism, and the housing market thrives on one thing more than anything else, and that is optimism. Because the driver of home values is not the investor. The driver of home values is the home buyer, the owner-occupied home buyer. That's still what creates upward pressure on prices in the housing market. So if people are feeling good, if they're confident about their job, if they're having a family and they're making plans, buying real estate is what they do to live in, and that winds up elevating the entire harbor, so to speak, for everybody who owns real estate in pretty much anywhere in the country. So what happens on election day is basically nothing's going to change. Things that might have come aren't going to come because the Congress is not going to cooperate with the president. Anything the Congress tries to do, the president is going to veto. Anything the president tries to do, the Congress is going to fight him on. And like whatever, I'm actually happy with what we have right now. The less tampering from Washington, the better, in my opinion, at this point, because we've gotten a big heaping portion of positive stuff of all kinds for upward trajectory. Like the biggest concern I have is that things overheat, right? That's like the biggest worry. And so I kind of like the idea that the rates are going up. I like the idea that housing prices, the level of the appreciation is slowing down. All that's good because all we want as real estate investors is normal times. That's all we care about, right? Just everything being normal, nothing too
Right.
volatile, nobody doing any stupid stuff in
Normal is a
Washington
good
to like,
keyword. Yeah, normal is a great keyword. I just want slow and steady, bro. Right? Give me slow and steady.
yeah, that's the thing that people, the more, one of my favorite things about my job is that OwnedAmericacom is a portal for real estate investors that is all about analyzing properties and acquiring properties and tracking the value of the properties you already own, but also being able to see them in vivid color. So you put the properties you own in your private portfolio, charts and graphs and maps and projections and calculators, all that stuff for free. Now we built all that for Wall Street. And then we had the big idea to make it available to Main Street, right? So that's what's fun about it because everyday people are getting the kind of things that Wall Street didn't have 10 years ago that was invented for Wall Street this last few years as they piled into the housing market. We took all that stuff because we were in the middle of all that, made it available to the masses, and now literally everyday landlords have the access to the same cutting edge stuff that nobody had 10 years ago. And it illuminates what is true. And what's true about investing in housing is really, really strong. It's really strong. It generates an income without breaking a sweat. You can buy a house at market value, so you don't have to find a deal. You don't have to find a little lady who's going to give you their house for cheap, not knowing any better. You don't have to find a bank foreclosure. You don't have to find a dilapidated piece of junk. All those things might be profitable, but you can just go buy a house for asking price, rent it out for what it's worth renting out for, and generate 5, 6%, 4%, 7%, depending on where, in yield, right? And that's just the profit you make on the rent. So you put 100 grand down and you're making $4, 5, $6,000 a year in income without having to wake up in the morning. Oh, hopefully you wake up in the morning without having to do anything after you wake up in the morning. It's just automatic, and that same property is going to go up in value 2, 3, 4, 5% every year. And if you can park the asset there, it just plays out that way. And the combination of those two things is what people are now seeing more clearly because of tools like ours and others that are out there that are just basically turning the light on in a dark room and showing people the power of this particular form of real estate, the single family house.